You're paying for everyone tonight. You earn more money, Dad declared, as the waiter set down the $1,847 bill for a table of 14. My sister's husband murmured, "Finally, good for something." Can you imagine the moment you finally snap? That second when the weight of years of obligation, of being taken for granted, just breaks? Their jaws hit the floor that night, and in that split second, I knew I was finally free. My name's Chris, and I'm 32. I'm a physical rehabilitation therapist, and honestly, according to my family, I'm the one who made it. Oldest child, first to graduate, first to buy an apartment. But that also means I'm the one they call when a back hurts, a car breaks down, or a bill is just a bit tight this month. For them, I'm basically a walking emergency fund with a face. I work long hours at a rehab center. I spend my days teaching people how to walk again, how to move without pain after surgeries or injuries. I'm good at what I do, and I genuinely like my patients. I love seeing their progress. What I don't love is coming home and realizing I have less respect for my own family than I get from strangers who can't even climb stairs. 4 years ago, I bought a 2-bedroom apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. It was supposed to be my clean start, my sanctuary. I'd saved for years, sacrificing almost everything. My parents were so proud when I signed the papers. Then my little sister Hannah and her husband Tom hit a rough patch. My mom called, her voice dripping with concern. "They just need a place for a few months, sweetheart. You have the space, Chris. Be a good brother. You don't even have kids." "A few months," she said. For years later, they were still there. Their names weren't on the deed. They didn't pay a cent of rent. And get this, they'd complain if I left dishes in their sink. So, that's the general picture. Fast forward to last Saturday night. We're at this ridiculously pretentious rooftop restaurant downtown for my dad's birthday. There were 14 of us crammed around a long table, city lights twinkling outside, overpriced cocktails flowing. Everyone was laughing, pretending we were this perfectly normal, happy family. Then the waiter, looking far too serious for the occasion, dropped the leather folder with the check right in front of my dad. Dad flipped it open, his eyebrows doing a quick little dance, and then, with a smirk, he turned it to me, like it was a menu. "You're covering everyone tonight," he announced, his voice loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "You make more money." My blood ran cold. Just as I started to process it, Tom leaned over, muttering under his breath, "Finally useful for something," just loud enough for me to catch every word. A couple of cousins chuckled. My face got hot, the number on the bill blurring for a second. I hadn't even touched my wallet, but I already felt that old, familiar heaviness settle in my chest. Here we go again. This wasn't a sudden ambush. This dinner was just the loudest, most public example of how my family had treated my income like community property since the day I got my first stable contract. When I finished my degree and landed that job at the rehab clinic, I was making okay money, not buyout money, more like finally stopped eating instant noodles, everyday money. My parents acted like I'd won the lottery. "Healthcare? That's secure," Dad would say. "You'll never be out of work." Mom would gush, "You're so lucky, Chris." Not like us, struggling all our lives. They weren't exactly struggling, though. We weren't rich growing up, but we had a house, 2 cars, vacations every couple of years. They just loved giving. We sacrificed everything speeches, so I learned to feel guilty about basically existing. Then came the apartment. I'd been living with roommates, saving every single extra cent. No eating out, no new clothes, just work and saving. I skipped vacations, skipped weekends away, skipped a lot of normal 20-something stuff, because I wanted something that was truly mine. When I finally signed those papers, I cried in the elevator going up. I'm not even ashamed to admit that. It felt like proof that all the sacrifice was worth it. My parents showed up with a plant and a bottle of cheap champagne. Hannah and Tom? They showed up with nothing, but immediately claimed the bigger bedroom for sleepovers. You know, when we visit. At the time, They were renting a place across town. Tom, bless his heart, can't keep a job longer than a year. Sales, marketing, crypto, whatever's trendy that week. My sister works part-time at a salon. Every time something went wrong, my parents would swoop in to save them. Except now, saving them meant involving me. About 6 months after I moved in, my mom called. "Sweetheart, can we come by tonight? It's important." In my family, important always means expensive. They sat at my kitchen table, looking very serious. "Hannah and Tom are in a bit of trouble with their landlord," Mom started. "They fell behind. Just a little. The landlord is being unreasonable." I later found out a bit behind meant 5 months. Tom just shrugged. "It's a rough market," he mumbled. Then Mom hit me with it. "We were thinking maybe they could stay here for a while. Just temporarily, a few months, until they get back on their feet." I just stared at them. All 3 of them. In my 2-bedroom apartment. Mom waved it off like it was nothing. "You're barely here. You work so much and you're single. You don't need all this space. You always say you want to help people. Well, these are your people." That line. That's her favorite weapon. If I say no, I'm a hypocrite. A bad son. A bad brother. The selfish one. "We'd help with groceries when we can," Dad added. That part never really happened. I caved. Of course I did. They moved in. From the start, the roles were clear. They took the master bedroom. "You don't mind, right?" Hannah asked, already hanging her clothes in my closet. "We have more stuff." I got the smaller room. They brought their dog, who, according to them, doesn't shed. My dark couch definitely disagreed. Bills quietly shifted. My name was on everything. Utilities, internet, building fees. Hannah would send me maybe $50 every now and then and call it our part. The rest? All on me. At first, I told myself it was fine. Family helps family. I still had enough to cover my own expenses, some savings. But it never stopped. Tom lost another job, then another. Every time my phone lit up, it was a request. "Can you cover rent this month? We're waiting on a check." Or, "Netflix stopped working. Can you look? It says payment declined." Of course it did. My card was attached to that account. When I started tracking everything in a spreadsheet, I scared myself. Over 3 years, I'd covered their portion of rent, which was never actually agreed on but sort of assumed. Utility increases from 2 additional adults and a dog constantly at home. Their car insurance just for a bit. A vet emergency when the dog swallowed a sock. Hannah's dental work. Because my credit card is maxed. On top of all that, my parents constantly hinted at how reassuring it was that I was there if they needed help too. Once, Dad called because their car needed repairs. "We'll pay you back when the refund comes in," he said. There was no refund. There was never a refund. What made it all worse was how little respect they had for the fact that I was working myself into the ground. I'd come home after a 10-hour day of helping stroke patients learn to stand, only to find Tom on my couch, controller in hand. "Rough day?" he'd ask without taking off his headset. "Yeah," I'd answer, setting my bag down. He'd just nod. "Same, man. Ranked matches are brutal." The first small crack in my just suck it up mindset came one night when I walked into the living room and heard my name. Hannah and my mom were on speakerphone laughing. "I swear, Tom," my sister said, "Chris is basically our landlord and our masseuse." Mom laughed even louder. "Well, he doesn't have a wife or kids. His money's for all of us. That's why God made him so practical." Tom chimed in, "Yeah, it's like having an on-call fixer with magic hands." They had no idea I was standing in the hallway listening. Something twisted in my chest. I backed into my room, shut the door quietly, and just sat on my bed. On-call fixer. Cool. From then on, I started noticing every single dismissive comment. "Must be nice," Dad would say every time I mentioned something normal, like buying new shoes. Some of us have real responsibilities. My lack of responsibilities got brought up a lot. Translation: You don't have kids, so you don't get to keep your paycheck. Hannah would sigh dramatically over her iced coffee. We could save so much if we didn't have to pay for daycare and food and everything. You're lucky, Chris. You just have yourself. I was paying for most of the food in that apartment, too, but okay. Then came the car situation. One day, I got a call from the bank about a loan application. Mr. Carter, we just need to confirm your income and employment for the car loan you applied for. I hadn't applied for anything. Long story short, Tom had accidentally put my email and phone number as the primary contact on his car loan application because your credit is better, man. They'll approve it faster. They almost attached me as a co-signer without me even knowing. I lost it that day. There was a huge fight, yelling, tears, and my mom's predictable. We don't fight like this in this family. But even then, after all the drama, nothing really changed. They apologized. I cooled down. Life went on exactly the same. So, when Dad suggested this big birthday dinner, I already had a bad feeling. We want to celebrate properly this year. Mom said, fancy place, nice photos. Your sister and Tom are strapped right now, but they'll come. It'll be special. Special always meant Chris is paying for something. I told myself I'd just cover my share. Maybe Dad's. I'd be reasonable. Set a small boundary. I profoundly underestimated how little they cared about reasonable. Back to the rooftop restaurant. 14 of us at the table. Parents, Hannah and Tom, their 2 kids, an aunt and uncle, a couple cousins. Everyone ordered like the menu, didn't have prices. This steak looks good. Tom chirped. Only $80. YOLO, right, Chris? He grinned at me. I ordered the cheapest thing that wasn't a side dish because I know what an $80 steak looks like on my budget. We drank wine I didn't choose. They ordered desserts for the whole table without asking. There were shots at one point. A birthday tower that cost more than my weekly groceries. When the waiter finally brought the bill, he placed it in front of my dad with a little nod. Dad flipped it open, barely blinked, then rotated it toward me like he was showing me a cool meme. You're covering everyone tonight, he said, his voice loud like it was a toast. You make more money. A couple of my cousins laughed. Mom did that fake scandalized thing. Oh, Greg, she said, patting his arm. Don't bully him. Then she turned to me, her voice softening just enough to be manipulative. But honestly, honey, you do earn the most, and this is a big milestone for your father. It would mean a lot. Tom leaned in close and whispered, finally useful for something, before downing the rest of his drink. Something in me snapped, but it was a quiet snap. I looked at the number. $1,847. That was half a month's income after taxes. That was my emergency fund. That was my patient's co-pays that I argued about with insurance companies. My hands felt weirdly steady. You really expect me to pay for 14 people? I asked, my voice calm. Dad frowned like I'd just ruined the vibe. Chris, don't make a scene. You know your sister and Tom can't afford this. We raised you better than to be selfish. Hannah chimed in, her voice sweet and patronizing. Yeah, it's just money. You'll make more next month. It's not like you have a family to support. That line again. No family to support. I looked around the table. The same people who'd been living off me for years. Okay, I said quietly. Got it. I took out my card. The waiter hovered. Will this be together or separate? Dad gestured at me. All together. He's got it. The waiter nodded and walked away with my card. I watched it leave, like I was watching a little red lifeboat drift further from shore. While he ran the payment, everyone went back to chatting. Vacations they wanted to take, things they needed to buy. Hannah talked about upgrading the kids' tablets. Tom joked about wanting a bigger TV. Nobody thanked me. Nobody even acknowledged what was happening. The waiter came back with the receipt. Here you go, sir. Thank you. I signed. My stomach twisted. But the weird thing was I felt calm. Absolutely, completely done. I stood up and raised my glass, tapping it gently with a spoon. Okay, I said, my voice steady. I need everyone's attention for a second. They all went quiet. Someone joked, "Oh, speech," and laughed. First, I said, looking at my dad, "Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you enjoyed dinner." He smirked, relaxed. See? I told you he'd do it. Then, I looked straight at Hannah and Tom. And second, I wanted to let you all know that this is the last time I pay for anything for this family. The table froze. What? Mom asked, her smile flickering. I kept going. Including the apartment, I said. I'm selling it. I'm moving out soon. You too. I nodded at Hannah and Tom. Need to start looking for a new place. You could have heard a fork drop. Hannah's face went white. You're what? Tom laughed like I was joking. Very funny, man. Don't be dramatic. I'm not joking, I said. I've already talked to a realtor. The listing photos happen next week. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Christopher, this is not the time. Actually, I said, my voice rising just slightly, it's exactly the time. Because I just paid $1,800 so you could all have a fun night. On top of 4 years of subsidizing Hannah and Tom. On top of bailing you out of car repairs and credit cards and bills. My voice stayed steady. It surprised even me. I took my phone out and opened my notes app. I've paid for your daycare late fees, I said to Hannah. Your vet bills. Your utilities. I covered 3 months of Mom and Dad's mortgage during COVID. Remember that. My eyes swept the table. Almost $10,000 total, not counting this dinner. A couple of my cousins looked down at their plates. And what I get in return? I continued, is being called an on-call fixer and finally useful for something. Tom went red. You were eavesdropping, he practically yelled. So, you admit you said it, I replied, a bitter laugh escaping me. Great. Mom's eyes flashed. We're not talking about this here. Sit down. No, I said. I felt weirdly light, like a massive weight was sliding off, piece by piece. I'm done sitting down and shutting up so you can keep using me. I set my empty glass down with a soft clink. You have 30 days, I repeated to Hannah and Tom. I'll put it in writing, since everybody loves to forget what I say. Then I looked at my parents. And in the future, if you can't afford a dinner like this, don't book it and assume I'll cover it. If you ask nicely in advance, maybe I'll consider chipping in. But this, I gestured at the cleared plates, the half-full wine glasses. This surprise Chris will pay thing is over. Silence. The music from the restaurant suddenly felt too loud. My dad's jaw clenched. You're punishing your sister's family because you're bitter. I'm protecting myself because you refuse to respect me, I said. And for the first time in my life, I actually believed my own words. People think the dramatic speech is the hardest part. It's not. It's what comes after. The fallout, the group chats, the calls, the guilt bombing. It started in the parking lot. As soon as we stepped outside, the night air hit us, and so did my mother. She grabbed my arm. Christopher, what was that? You humiliated us in front of everyone. I gently took my arm back. I stated boundaries in front of witnesses, I said. That's different. Dad joined in. Where are they supposed to go? Out on the street? You want your niece and nephew homeless. There it was. The kid's card. I'd been waiting for it. They have 2 incomes, I said. They can find a 1-bedroom or studio like every other young couple who isn't being carried. They've had 4 years of a head start. Use the time they were living rent-free. I don't know, not buying new iPhones every year. Hannah walked up, already crying. How can you do this to us? She sobbed. We're family. Tom shook his head. Over one dinner? Seriously. I laughed. I couldn't help it. This isn't about one dinner. This is about 4 years of you acting like my paycheck is a subscription service. Mom pressed her lips together. We didn't raise you to be cruel, she said. You raised me to ignore my own needs, I replied. That's changing. I got in my car and left. By the time I got home, the family group chat was a war zone. Mom, you blindsided everyone tonight. We could have discussed this calmly at home. Dad, you owe your sister an apology. That was shameful behavior. Hannah, so you're really kicking us out after everything we've been through? Tom, thanks for ruining your dad's birthday over a check. LOL. There were a couple of messages from cousins, too. One, that was wild, but honestly proud of you. Another, you were harsh, but they needed a wake-up call. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I did something I'd been too scared to do for too long. I called the realtor I'd emailed weeks ago and said, I'm ready. Let's list the place. We scheduled photos. He sent me comparable prices. The number he quoted for the sale made my head spin. Not billionaire money, but enough to change my life if I wasn't constantly patching holes in everyone else's. Then I sat Hannah and Tom down in the living room. No audience, no restaurant, just us. I'm giving you formal notice, I said, handing them a printed letter with the date. 30 days. I'm selling. You need to find a new place. Hannah's eyes flicked over the paper. You're really serious, she whispered. Yeah, I said. I am. Tom scoffed. You can't just throw us out. Tenants have rights. You're not tenants, I said. You've never paid rent. There's no lease. You're my guests. And my guests have overstayed. That's heartless, Hannah said. What's heartless? I replied, my voice dangerously low. Is trying to attach me to a car loan without asking, or expecting me to cover daycare late fees and restaurant bills and pretending that's normal. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. This isn't punishment, I said. It's reality. If I sell this apartment, I can clear my own debts, maybe open a small rehab studio, actually have a future. I can't do that with 3 extra adults living off me. Tom muttered something about control issues. I didn't argue. I'd done enough explaining. The next few weeks were awkward. They started slamming doors. Passive-aggressive dishes piled in the sink. Their dog suddenly forgot he was house-trained. My parents called daily. Mom cycled through every stage. Guilt. You know your father and I won't be around forever. Is this how you want to remember us? Fighting. After all we did for you growing up, this is how you repay us. Martyrdom, fear. Hannah is so stressed she can't sleep. The kids are confused. Is that what you want? Then bargaining. What if they just pay a little rent? We can all work something out. I stuck to one sentence. The decision is made. I repeated it so many times it started to feel like a meditation. Not gonna lie, there were moments I almost caved. Like when my niece came into my room one night and asked, Uncle Chris, are we moving because we were bad? I hugged her and said, no, sweetheart, you were perfect. The grown-ups just need to fix some things. I went to my own therapy more often during that month. My therapist kept bringing me back to the same point. You're not making them homeless, she said. You're making them responsible. When the listing went up, my mom truly lost it. She sent me a long message about airing family business to strangers because the photos showed their cluttered bedroom. Then she dropped the mask. Fine, do whatever you want, but don't come crying to us when you're alone in some tiny apartment with no one to help you. That one stung, I'll admit, but also it was almost funny. No one to help me? I'd been helping them nonstop for years. The only difference now was that I'd stopped. The apartment sold faster than expected. Got an offer over asking within 2 weeks. When I told Hannah and Tom the closing date, they finally started packing like it was real. They ended up moving into a smaller rental on the edge of the city. No balcony, no rooftop view, no master suite. Just a normal apartment people pay for with their own money. My parents helped them with the deposit, which, a wild concept, they absolutely could have done years ago. As for me, I rented a modest 1-bedroom, closer to my work. Smaller kitchen, less sunlight, no Instagram-worthy skyline. But when I walked in the first night and shut the door, the silence felt peaceful. No game noises, no arguments in the living room, no extra shoes in the hallway. Just my stuff, my bills, my life. With the money from the sale, I paid off my student loans in one go, cleared my credit card, put a huge chunk into savings labeled Clinic Dream. It was the first time my bank account looked like it belonged to an adult who wasn't constantly one crisis away from zero. My patients noticed the change in me before my family did. "You look lighter," one of my regulars said. "Did you go on vacation?" "Kind of," I answered. "From my family." We both laughed, but I meant it. At work, I started talking with a colleague about opening a small rehab studio together in the future, something more personal than the big clinic. Before, that idea would have felt irresponsible. Now it felt possible. My parents still invited me to things, but always with an asterisk. "We're having dinner Sunday. Hannah and Tom will be there. We expect you to be civil." I went once. They spent the whole time talking about how rough the move had been. We had to downgrade. Hannah complained. "I miss the view." "The kids miss the space," Tom added. "Our new place doesn't even have a gym in the building." First world problems, right? No one mentioned the part where they now actually pay rent. At the end of the night, when the bill came, it landed in the middle of the table. Everyone looked at it, then at me. I just smiled. "So, separate checks?" I asked the waiter. Dad glared. But after an awkward pause, everyone mumbled, "Yeah, separate is fine." And just like that, the spell broke a little more. It's been 6 months since that rooftop dinner. To my parents, this is when Chris turned cold. In my mom's version, I'm selfish and obsessed with money, meaning I stopped funding everyone's life. In their story, I kicked kids out and chose cash over family. In mine, I finally chose myself. My life is smaller now in a good way. Plain 1-bedroom, basic stuff, quiet nights. But everything in it is mine. I know where my money goes. I open my banking app and don't feel sick. I still help people. That's literally my job. I stay late with nervous patients. Still get videos of them climbing stairs again. That kind of help fills me up. I just don't let my family treat me like an ATM anymore. I see them less and only on my terms. If they invite me out, I ask, "How are we handling the bill?" If it's vague, I pass. When my dad hinted about taxes, I said, "I can't help with money, but I can help you call the bank." He dropped it. My sister and I have a quiet truce. She sends photos of the kids. Sometimes we meet at the park. Once she said, "We actually had to make a budget. It sucked, but I get that you were drowning." Not an apology, but close enough. My mom still throws, "Hope you're happy in your little apartment," like it's an insult. Honestly, I am. Making more money doesn't make you the family bank. Being single doesn't mean your money is extra. Real love includes boundaries. I walked away from being the default payer. And for the first time, I'm actually standing on my own 2 feet. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between your family's expectations and your own well-being? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.